Welcome to the talk show Promising Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement. And today we'll discuss the matter taking place in Bangladesh at the very moment regarding banking sector and financial sector. And to suit the very purposes, we have invited two very important guests. One is Mr. Mamun Rashid. He is a leading economic analyst in Bangladesh at this very moment. Other being Mr. Masrur Reaz, and he is the chairman and CEO, Policy
Exchange Bangladesh.
Exchange Bangladesh. He is also an economist. Well, how are you, Mr. Mamun Rashid?
Thank you so much.
You know very well what is happening in Bangladesh because you are one of the leading icon in the field of banking and financial sector. What is your understanding at this very moment of 2024?
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here and more happy that we'll be discussing this kind of pertinent issues with nobody less than Dr. Masrur Reaz, who has got a stellar background of working with one of the leading development partners for Bangladesh, the World Bank Group. So I'm sure Masrur will pick up his own issues to be discussed or at least on the table. What is happening? Whenever you open the newspaper in the morning, you get to see debt default, bank default, forgery or fraud in the commercial banks, and more so if somebody is coming from overseas, he will tell you your banking market is so shallow, so not having any product diversity and other thing. And number 4 is insider lending. Winner takes it all kind of thing that is happening, that yes, that there are lot of pseudo loans or loans not in the right name, somehow hiding in the asset book. Those are not being owned directly by the owners of the banks or the senior executives of the bank, but ultimately these are being found to be somehow driven by the owners of the banks. So owner dictated or board dictated loans. And number 5 is of course along with overall governance, weak governance in the country or weak political governance. This is also eating into the economic discipline of the banking sector and overall economic discipline of the overall national balance sheet management. And that is why when you ask me that what is the position of our banking sector or financial sector, this is not very encouraging, because on the one side IMF has identified almost more than 25% of the asset book or loan asset book or the funded asset book of the banking sector to be stressed asset. So in international kind of definition, banking definition, stressed asset could be a recurring past due asset, could be some kind of temporarily past due asset. These are to be eyed on, these are to be monitored. So if you ask me, though the Bangladesh Bank statistics or Bureau of Statistics Bangladesh, their statistics would tell you that yes, impaired loan in the or impaired asset in the banking sector is around 10%, which is also alarming as per IMF yardstick. But it is in fact if you apply the quality judgment, IFC in Bangladesh, they instituted a kind of a 1-member or 2-member, Dr. Masrur Reaz can tell it better, team to look into the impaired asset in the Bangladesh banking sector pre-COVID. It was possibly 2018 or 19, and that committee found out, or that team found out, that more than 20% of the Bangladeshi banking sector asset is stressed asset or deemed to be classified loan. So in that case, but we have done similar studies supported by other development partners, and most of the target interviewee, those were the CXOs and CEOs of the banks, commercial banks, each one of them told us their classified loan or doubtful loan or possible bad debt loan is more than 25% of their asset book. So, that tells you the story, and that is not acceptable. And number two, and I will finish here creating space for my colleague Dr. Masrur Reaz, that yes, number two, Bangladesh for all practical purpose is an emerging economy, developing economy. Its capital need is high. Bangladesh entrepreneurs are capital hungry, be it micro entrepreneur, small entrepreneur, medium entrepreneur, large entrepreneur. So, capital hungry capital can be two types. One is the equity capital, second is the debt capital, and we are short on both. Why we are short on equity capital? Because our nature and the tenor of the deposits matrix is less than, average tenor of the deposit matrix is less than 1 year, and with 1 year less than maturity deposits, we are financing because of the economic opportunities created, because of the demand created, financing infrastructure projects whose payback period is more than 12 to 15 years time. So, this is a fund management mismatch. Second is because of the private sector growth in the economy, there is a serious and increasing need of foreign capital also in dollar capital. So, dollar capital, if dollar capital we want to bring in dollar capital from outside the country, that warrants some kind of minimum possible discipline in the balance sheet management, financial management, which is not in keeping with the political mess has been created through economic cronyism or crony capitalism development, favoring all our party men, all our close people. So, there is a double standard. That is why international funding agencies or the commercial funding agencies who are otherwise keen on Bangladesh's growth, Bangladesh's domestic disposable income rise, Bangladesh's consumer income rise, they are very, because of the country risk, because of the how the entire overall country economy is being managed, country's balance sheet is being managed, they are shy of lending to Bangladesh. I can give you an example. Say for IFC, they are tuned towards private sector growth, private sector development. Their asset book in Bangladesh is equivalent to Nepal asset book. See, that means something we must be missing, and according to me, that missing is the way we manage our finance, national finance, corporate finance, balance sheet management, as well as overall financial transparency and accountability.
Thank you very much. I will come to you again. Mr. Masrur, being one of the very, very leading icons in your field, as Mr. Mamun Rashid asserted categorically, what is your observations?
Thank you, Mr. Sinha, and it's a great privilege to come and join this very popular show, but it's also a great privilege to share the podium and the screen with Mr. Mamun Rashid, who we always learn from and who has been leading or pioneer economic analyst, but bringing in the both side of economic theory and the applied trade and investment and financial sector elements, and a great motivator for us. I think Mr. Rashid very eloquently and in a very sort of targeted way, he has explained the real issues that are currently underpinning Bangladesh financial sector. Financial sector in Bangladesh, I fully agree with him, the number one issue at the moment, whether you call it concern or a problem, challenge or the characteristic, is the unprecedented level of non-performing loan, which, as Mr. Rashid said rightly, it's above 10%, 11 point certain percentage, but it is perhaps much higher than 11%. As Mr. Rashid said, if you speak with banking experts, bank management officials, if you speak to central bank officials, in private conversations, they will not disagree that the non-performing loan level, the actual, is much higher than the 11% rate. But even if we take 11% as the real one, hypothetically, that also indicates a crisis. As Mr. Rashid was saying, if you look at financial theory, if you look at international standard, any financial sector which has more than 10% of its asset as non-performing loan should be declared or considered as a sector in crisis. And the crisis management policy and other reform need to be deployed immediately. And we have been having this more than 10% for some years now. It's not only since 2022 when the macroeconomic challenges also crept up on Bangladesh. So that's number one. Number two, why non-performing loans so high? Now, if this was due to economic cycle, business cycle, it happens in many countries. Supply demand disruption, as we have seen in 2009, the global financial meltdown. It started because there was a serious demand side collapse. Of course, there were some unethical practices or non-strategic decision on the part of some of the US banks taking high risk or high exposure into bad assets in real estate market. But that's not the case here. That's the second unfortunate thing. Here, it's a clear collapse of credit discipline. The non-performing loan, I think even many government officials or policymakers have agreed that the corporate governance or the credit governance in many banks have completely been compromised due to influence and interventions from influential quarters. And as a result, many of these loans which have gone as non-performing loan or bad asset have been turned non-performing almost intentionally, or what we call willful defaulters. And for many years, even the definition of willful defaulter has been missing, but very recently the willful defaulter has been defined, but its damage has been done. The third characteristic of the financial sector is that, again, Mr. Rashid very rightly touched upon that. This sector is now having to carry the weight or the burden of the entire economy's growth finance need or finance need. But the banking sector usually, as per theory and as per global practice, it takes care of short-term financing need. In Bangladesh, the 75% of the deposits are less than 1 year maturity. Deposits usually fund the assets or the loans or the financing. But with this less than 1 year 75% maturity, the banks are having to finance anywhere between 2 to 6, 7 years projects. And in some cases, if it's infrastructure, as Mr. Rashid said, it's longer than that. That is creating a serious asset liability mismatch. And that is also playing a role behind this non-performing loan or the challenges in the banking sector. Another problem, many of the banking institutions have now become very weak with regard to financial stability or strength. They are, because of depletion of their assets or assets turning into distressed asset or pure non-performing loan, their capital base has been eroded. And their ability to replenish that capital has also been weakened. So we are now dealing with not only a sector plagued with much higher than international or regional standard non-performing loan, credit governance collapse, but we are also dealing with a sector which has several financial institutions which risk collapse because of capital inadequacy and serious dent to their financial health. And in general, beyond banking sector, in Bangladesh, so there is, as the country has been truly growing, whether it's 7% or 6% or 5.5%, regardless of that debate, the country has been growing at a high rate. And the long-term prospect of the country's growth is very stable, very strong. If you look at HSBC's projection, between 2020 and 2031, the country is expected to grow at 7.1% average. That's a very high growth rate and one of the fastest. Building on the development performance of last few decades, Bangladesh now boasts some really good prospect for investment, for greater global value chain participation through international trade, but that will need finance.
Well, thank you very much for highlighting the whole thing, and we'll come to you again. Viewers, we're going for a short break, and we'll come to you again very soon. Please keep watching. We are back again to the talk show Promise Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement, and we are having talks with two giant economists. One is Mr. Mamun Rashid, other being Mr. Masrur Reaz. Mr. Mamun Rashid, everybody knows that you are what you are, and your voice is very much Himalayan style. What is your observation on the crony capitalism in Bangladesh, which is eating everything in the field of economics?
Yes, you know, there was a saying in our economics 101 development studies, what I have gone through, and there was a popular book written by Mr. Tharwal. So Bangladesh is, if you critically look at the development story or history of Bangladesh or stages of Bangladesh, you will come across a theory called trickle down theory. So some of the people will make money and they will trickle it down to the downtrodden people. That has been the socio-economic, socio-political setup for Bangladesh for many years now. So we did not mind. Some people made money after the independence, some did business. We did not have enough entrepreneurs like Bawani, Adamji and Ispani and others, though Ispani subsided with East Pakistan, and now Bangladesh. So Bangladesh had to create lot of private entrepreneurs, and at that stage of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and late Mr. Tajuddin Ahmed while he was the finance minister, that kind of state capitalism, EPIDC model, state helping the entrepreneurs to come up, and then came up, if you look at the history of Bangladesh's growth, then came up the story of BRAC and Grameen Bank and others who really directly contributed towards formation of capital at the bottom of the pyramid, be it rural economy, be it semi-urban economy. There was no urban centers like Dhaka in then East Pakistan and just after the independence. So that time some kind of help, some kind of EPIDC model was okay. But now this has reached the roof and exceeding the roof even in fact, because now everybody is a government person or person close to the government. So what happens to there was a study taught in our economics class, new classical thought, which is Irma Edelman, Cynthia Taft-Morris and Samir Amin, that center periphery theory. So now things have become so worse that if you are not, if it is only between my way or highway. So if somebody is not in my way, singing my own song, subscribing to my definition of growth, development, prosperity, you are being shown the highway. So in that highway, that is not also bad. If that could have created many business houses like Square, Transcom, Abul Khair, PSP, BSRM and all, Crown Cement and others. But that is depriving, that is not, on the one side it is not helping to create another Square, another Transcom, another Apex, another blah blah blah, and also depriving the young educated entrepreneurs who has the required capacity, credential, academic background to add on to this Bangladesh entrepreneurship ecosystem. Only because they do not sing the similar song like a political crony, political party members. So while we are trying to unify the nation, because we are learning from other nations like Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, even South Africa after reconciliation, so that you use the overall capacity or the emerging capacity of the young entrepreneurs, young businessmen, young drivers of the country. But we are, after even 52 years of our independence, we first and foremost we look at somebody, how successful he is, whatever brilliant his business model can be, whatever brilliant his solution building can be, we try to do a blood dissection study whether he is A positive or B positive. So in a nation, we are not being able to, because of this crony capitalism, because of this abrasive politicization, pervasive politicization of the economic decision making process, without broadening the, failing to broaden the decision making process, economic decision making process, we are depriving a big chunk of young, vibrant, energetic youth entrepreneur. Oh, we do not belong to any of the political parties that you talk of. Maybe incidentally our blood group is not A positive or B positive. What I do? But I have got a brilliant idea. Who will help me? Nothing happening. Every bit of it has been politicized. That is why there is a serious brain drain. What keeps on bothering both of us? We keep on talking. I thanked him because he decided to leave World Bank Group and stay in the country. Though he had compelling reasons to look after the family and the family legacy, but lot of people, very educated, vibrant, energetic, knowledgeable, ability to go beyond the box, think beyond the box, they are applying knowingly and unknowingly. One single incident, I did not get this license, I did not get this approval, I went to a government office, it is so harassing, I did not get a bed for my mom in the public hospital, so let me go to Canada. And Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Biden is freely, without any cost, getting these brilliant people. It is so tough, I tell you, Mr. Sinha, that to hold on to a BUET graduate, IBA graduate for more than 2 years. We are begging to them, please stay for 2 years. We need to bring them back. We need to share a compelling growth story with them, which will be not on the basis of color, race, religion, or any political alliance or allegiance.
Thank you very much. Mr. Masrur, very bleak picture has been drawn by Mr. Mamun Rashid, which nobody can deny. How do you analyze all these things?
No, I fully agree with Mr. Rashid's excellent analysis, because as you probably also will have seen, he has been passionately making the case that, crony capitalism, as you mentioned at the beginning, it's there in many developing and emerging countries. Bangladesh is not the only country. But in many countries, at some point South Korea also have seen crony capitalism. In some Western countries, there are, although limited, and if their wrongdoings are made public or evidence are made public, there is always accountability. But it happened in some developed countries as well, developing country, many countries. But as long as this doesn't stifle the growth of a sector or a growth of a bigger community, as Mr. Rashid said, the current one is stifling the growth of young entrepreneurs or apolitical entrepreneurs, right? That's when it becomes problem. We have seen crony capitalism in Malaysia as well. At some point of time, the crony capitalism was tolerated as long as it did not interfere with the national development strategy, and rather actually contributed to that. I think in Bangladesh's case, this is happening in isolation of any strategic, national strategic benefit, or for the benefit of even a sector. Rather, it's happening in the opposite. So what it is doing, first of all, it's depriving entrepreneurs, as Mr. Rashid said, but it's also depriving many sectors from their true growth potential. And here is Bangladesh economy, despite 6-7% growth, despite being the second largest exporter of ready-made garments in the world, despite very fast poverty reduction performance over 3 to 4 decades, despite great agri-productivity increase over 52 years, we are left with very concentrated both export and domestic sectors. So we talk about how concentrated our export basket is. 84% last fiscal year, RMG. It was, I think, 77% 12 years ago, 13 years ago. So concentration has gone up. But domestic economy as well is very concentrated. If you look at the industrial output index of Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, 4 sectors comprise 71% of total production. RMG, textile, food and beverage, and plastic and allied products, 71% of industrial. So what it means is that what we need and what we have potential for, many other sectors, which would have given, which would have created many more entrepreneurs, and through them more jobs and wealth and income. That is not happening because many sectors' growth are in the hands of vested interest at the cost of protecting the privileges and making them even more privileged. The bigger interest of those sectors are not coming in place. So that's a big problem. In Bangladesh's case, we don't have those two. So that's why we cannot say crony capitalism in Bangladesh's case is either necessary or beneficial, because we don't have what made crony capitalism in an unintentional way beneficial for countries like Malaysia. We don't have those foundations. So in our case, they're moving the economy towards worse rather than towards betterment. So that's a big problem. You said bleak picture. Yeah, this is very disappointing. But we also have great prospects. As I was just mentioning, our long-term growth prospect is one of the highest in the world, 7.1% over 12 years. Bangladesh, you have seen HSBC and Boston Consulting Group both have projected the country to become the 9th largest consumer market by 2030. The market growth rate is higher than many European markets. So that would help Bangladesh to become more consumption oriented, which can help our GDP and growth both to grow. However, these prospects, we are also very fortunate to have a demographic dividend. Many rich countries would invest their whole wealth to get that, but they won't get it. They can only import a compensation for that, but can't have on their own. 28 years of median age, 68% of 170 million people are working age. So this demographic dividend, many countries don't have. But the dividend we can turn it into demographic advantage only if the right institution, right policies, right growth and sector expansion or new sector creation policies come in, which would ultimately make sure we have more entrepreneurs, more and better jobs, more gainful employment and wealth. Only then these prospects can get into reality, right? So with some disappointment, we are seeing that reversals happening in some of the policy areas where Bangladesh has previously done well. For example, in taxation.
Thank you very much. I will come to you again, and we're going for a short break. Viewers, we are going for a short break, and we'll come to you again very soon. Please keep watching. We are back to the talk show Promises Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement, and we are having talks about the issues, especially in the field of finance, commerce, and banking sector. And fortunately, we have invited two very important guests, and they are passing their very, very important comments and observations. And keeping this in mind, I like to turn to Mr. Mamun Rashid. remittance, dollars, reserve, and foreign export earnings. Nowadays, everybody is talking about these things. As a banker of the first order, how do you view all these things?
Thank you very much. Just to add some coins to what Masrur has just put in onto the table, that is in Malaysia, good that he picked up the example of Malaysia. In Malaysia, between 2017 to 2022, 5 times the government changed, but Malaysia was saved by Bank Negara Malaysia, Central Bank Governor, and the setup. Nothing happened to much to Malaysian ringgit. Nothing happened to the trade and commerce. So in the D8 nation countries, Malaysia is the top performer with regard to trade and commerce, including production of chips, semiconductor. After Taiwan in Asia, Malaysia is a star. Of course, China, setting aside China. So now while US is looking for a alternate to China with regard to semiconductor production, Malaysia could be a very good harnessing ground. So coming back to your question now, so institutions and strong monitoring institutions. Thank you very much for bringing that up. So coming back to the remittance thing, I was privy to a World Bank study many years ago, possibly 2003, 2004, 2005, that how big could be the Bangladesh's inward remittance pie. So that time it was determined as $20 billion possible pie, possible, potential, and kind of say sure shot kind of thing. So that time we were receiving around $9 to $10 billion. So the pie identified was $20 billion. Then now after say 12, 13 years now or 20 years now, we are telling that how big could be the inward remittance pie with 7.4 million Bangladeshi diaspora living abroad. And out of that, of course, you may talk of the subsistence workers as well as the blue collar and the white collar workers. White collar workers may not be remitting much of money, but the blue collar workers in the GCC countries including Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Oman, Bahrain, Kuwait, and as well as Far Eastern countries like Singapore, Malaysia, and little bit in South Korea, and also in the European countries like Spain, Italy, Greece, that pie has been now duly recognized to be around $50 billion plus. So, and this was more revalidated, I was happy, by nobody less than our Honorable Finance Minister, who told in public, shared in public, that only according to him, only 50%, 51% of the possible pie of the inward remittance comes to Bangladesh through official channel. That is another a big question. Political cronyism, lack of governance, because non-accountability, no transparency. So Bangladeshi beneficiary family in rural Bangladesh, Khulna, Satkhira, Rangpur, Noakhali, Sylhet, they are happy with the taka. They get taka. But dollar never comes to the country. 49% of the dollar, or foreign currency, according to Honorable Finance Minister, does not come to the country or the country's national exchequer or the coffer of the central bank through the official channel. These are being diverted to finance trade-based money laundering or political cronyism driven or benefited business groups at a higher rate. The beneficiary in rural Bangladesh is happy with much higher rate than the official rate. Why I should lose 10 taka? Whoever is the labor earning 500 real in a week, to him 1 taka matters. I was the branch manager of a then wage earners branch, kind of foreign exchange branch, only catering to the requirement of the wage earners, non-resident Bangladeshis. I have seen lot of marriages, lot of educations, lot of health care of the elderly parents, those were stopped or intercepted because the remittance did not come on time. Bangladesh Bank, Bangladesh government did a good job under Dr. Farashuddin. Now I must remember with lot of salutation that yes, banking must be ready, banking channel must be ready to welcome non-resident Bangladeshi. Though our airports are yet to tell this story, sing the similar song, but that is another discussion. So most of the money, foreign exchange is not coming to the country. That is a big challenge. Number two, this unremitted money is bank received at the bank or exchange house counter in different centers of foreign exchange remittance like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Malaysia, in other say free or questionable governance country, regulated country kind of thing, they are being diverted to pay for the under invoicing or over invoicing, mostly under invoicing, because so that the tax comes down. So they are depriving the National Board of Revenue on the tax side of it, and on the other hand this is helping to siphon out ill-gotten money through political cronyism, political nepotism, or closeness with the government offices to the outside world. This is a laundered money. If you ask me as a humble student of economics and as a humble banker who has been always regulated by the US laws because of his banking life, I would point blank tell you this is called money laundering. Any money not earned is an unearned money which tantamounts to money laundering. Money laundering is another kind of civic nuisance in this country which is increasingly increasing its size.
Thank you very much. Money laundering is a civic nuisance. Very wonderful. He coined a very wonderful words and praise indeed. How do you?
As I said at the beginning, we greatly appreciate Mr. Mamun Rashid's wisdom and we'll always learn. I think he again shot the right nail on the head. As you mentioned, I think remittance, dollar, export. Bangladesh is going through unprecedented macroeconomic challenge for the last 16-17 months, since middle of 2022. There are three pillars of that macroeconomic challenge. By the way, this has also completely overturned something that has been Bangladesh's pride for many decades, stable macroeconomic management. And I think policymakers get big share of the credit for such very stable, sound macroeconomic management. This is being tested now for last 1.5 years at least. Three pillars of that challenge: high inflation, non-performing loan and financial sector health, which we have discussed in detail, and third, our overall external sector management, where comes the reserve, the balance of payment and the currency value. There are all the three are interlinked to each other. Money laundering or cross-border flight, illicit flight of capital has been a key reason why the demand-supply dynamics of foreign exchange or dollar it is not the only reason, but perhaps it is the prime reason why the demand-supply dynamic was unsettled and abnormal demand for dollars were on the ground. If we look at the import bill of not the last fiscal year but the one before, which ended in June 2022, it was $86 billion. At a time when the economy was just coming out of COVID-related disruptions, there was no reason. If you look at normal Bangladesh's historic import growth rate, if you look at the context that the country and the whole world was just coming out, of course there was pent-up demand. But for Bangladesh's case, this was not pent-up demand. Even if you go to the peak demand right before COVID, 86, even with the historical growth, should not have, the number should not have been 86. So it is assumed, it can be safely assumed, a big part of that $86 billion, or some part of that $86 billion was cross-border illicit capital flight under the guise, under the cover of trade-based money laundering, over-invoicing. And under-invoicing also happens, as we have been struggling with export figures, reconciliation of what the reported exports are and what the proceeds are, right? But both deprive the country from much needed foreign exchange. Why do I say much needed? Bangladesh, end of the day, is a net import dependent country. We don't produce most of the raw materials we need. We don't produce intermediate goods that we need for our manufacturing, and very little about capital machineries that we produce. We have to rely, even for agriculture production. We have done very well, but we are the third largest importer, food importer in the world. And whatever we produce in the country, agriculture, majority of the inputs are imported, fertilizer, pesticides, still majority seeds are imported. So in a country like that, when the balance or the dynamic gets disrupted between demand and supply, primarily for trade-based money laundering, we see a big shake-up in the macroeconomy, and we have seen 31% depreciation as a result of that. If you look at the LC value, the depreciation is probably 47%. Now, how is it linked to the non-performing loan or the banking sector? Again, some experts have talked about it. Some consultations in the government have also talked about it. The willful default led non-performing loans, it is assumed a majority of that money have left the country, and they have left the country under the guise of this trade-based money laundering.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mamun Rashid, only 1 minute. What is your final comments?
Bangladesh possesses lot of potentials because of the domestic demand rise, domestic consumption holding on. So through proper integrated forward looking policy imperatives, policy options, policy guidance, we can fully, if not fully, optimally explore and exploit this potential. We should work together and with our development partners and other stakeholders to make sure the bottom of the pyramid keeps on going up, and no growth is a good growth unless it is sustainable growth, it is inclusive growth.
Thank you very much. Viewers, we are going to end this talk show, and before that I have to summarize what the guests expressed by this time. And we heard from the very mouth of the two guests about the economy of Bangladesh, and both of them are very high of the future of Bangladesh. At the same time, they are very much concerned about the ongoing state of economy in the country, including the banking, export, import, and other things. Even the crony capitalism being flourished in Bangladesh by those people, especially the government, is not so on the right direction, because crony capitalism is not avoidable sometimes. Sometimes it helps the economy to go up. And taking all this things together, the gist is that being a citizen of Bangladesh, we all feel that Bangladesh should be governed in proper way, in proper manner, in proper mood and mood. And that is the expectation of the people, and that is the expectation of the two economists sitting here. And thank you very much. We meet you again the next week. Thank you.